Happy Wednesday at lunchtime, and welcome to the Digital Weather Desk powered by Century Next Bank. What's next for you? Visit cnext.bank for more. Pretty quiet day across the area. Got a cold front moving through. It's a little breezy out there, and it'll probably stay breezy through the rest of the day and into the day tomorrow. And the prolonged dry conditions could become a bit of a concern for many locations as we go into next week. We'll tackle all of that in just a minute. First, a look at what's happening with the help of the radar. And as we have mentioned many times before, every shingle radar product is made possible by Brown's Roofing. Visit brownsroofingla.com. No rainfall across the region as the front continues to advance through the southernmost parts of our area. There, in theory, we could maybe scour out an isolated shower. Again, not really expecting that to be much of an issue. And the breezy conditions will start to usher in a much drier air mass that most of us will enjoy over the next several days. Check out the visible satellite, and there's kind of a mix of cloud cover across the region. Janice, good afternoon. Thanks so much for hopping in. There's a mix of cloud cover. Some high clouds, some low, and even some mid-level clouds, just depending on really your location. The most persistent cloud cover, which is really having the biggest impact on temperatures, is across southern Arkansas and through portions of the mid-Mississippi Valley, really from the state line, Arkansas-Louisiana state line through the Mississippi Valley. Basically about the northern third of the coverage area. And as you zoom in, you kind of see what I'm talking about. You've got more persistent, kind of more low-mid clouds across southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana. And then it's more just the afternoon cumulus clouds starting to work their way back in along the I-20 corridor. And then also some high clouds kind of scraping in from west to east across the region. Temperatures, again, really impacted by the cloud cover across southern Arkansas in the low to mid-70s. We also have the cooler, drier air punching in as well, but I think a lot of this is kind of cloud-induced. Low to mid-80s along the I-20 corridor, 85 in Winfield, 84 in Monroe, 82 in Ruston. But again, the drier air is, make no mistake, starting to move in. Dew points are in the upper 60s. Again, we're going to get drier than this, but this is just kind of the appetizer, if you will, as we go through the next few days. Overnight lows will fall back into the 50s in many spots. So again, dry air is kind of the bigger headline out of this next air mass change. Dew points still in the low 70s for some, at least currently. Wind speeds, breezy at times, 15 miles an hour sustained at the Monroe Airport. Most of us are out of the northeast at this point, and likely to stay breezy. The gusts in the last few hours have kind of tamed down, I believe. At one point, we gusted to 24 miles per hour at the Monroe Airport about a half hour ago. Check of wind speeds, Futurecast made possible by Bayou Power Sports I-20 Frontage Road in Monroe, shows that we stay pretty breezy as we pull that drier air in the wake of this boundary as we go through the next couple of days. So I would expect to stay breezy through the day tomorrow as well. Friday, winds start to die down a little bit as the flow behind the front starts to weaken a smidge, and then the upper level pattern starts to change in that wake as well. We'll take a closer look at that in just a minute. Drought monitor, not concerning for the time being. So we talk about all this dry air and how this is going to be a problem, blah, 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 blah. Drought monitor doesn't really advertise that currently because we've seen some rain recently and soil moisture, at least across parts of the area, we're faring okay. But we've gone progressively longer periods of time without rainfall, and then we pull a drier air mass back in over the next couple of days, and then beyond that, high pressure builds aloft again, and we start to trend back above normal temperature-wise. So all of this really works against any kind of prospective significant rain chances. And then here's the other thing that kind of tells a little bit more of a better story. That is horrible grammar-wise. This tells the better story as we go through the last month or so. While we've seen rain, the vast majority of our area the last 30 days has been quite dry, running a fraction of our normal rainfall over the last month. Some areas about a third of what we would typically see, some areas close to 2/3, but you start to see a lot of drier spots in the last month, and that's where we start to see the need for some rain. May, good afternoon. Thanks so much for hopping in. And the bad news with all of that is we just really don't have any kind of significant rain chances in the next 7 to 10 days. There are signs that we could see a cold front late next week, but and you'll see that in the mid-level pattern here in just a minute. But here in the short term, there's not a lot changing. We worked this cold front through the area today, and you can kind of see what that's doing to the overall upper-level pattern. That big high-pressure center that we have had positioned across the region, Marlene, good afternoon. That high-pressure center that we had across the region, this big ridge of high pressure across the area, that's going to kind of get pushed back off to the west. So kind of put this into motion over the next few days. And now, instead of being positioned over our area, it's over the west. So the good news with all that is now we get an opportunity to start pulling in this big fetch of dry air in the northerly and northwesterly flow aloft. So now we get to all of this dry air here, and that's what we get to enjoy in terms of some pleasant overnight lows in the 50s and daytime highs low to mid 80s, and we push that big dome of hot air off to the west. All sounds great, right? Well, then as we go into the weekend, that high pressure ridge starts to kind of get reinforced and then wander back to the east. Not only does it shift our wind pattern instead of out of the northwest pulling in cooler, drier air, now back out of the southwest, pulling in some much warmer air and maybe even some subtropical moisture, which makes things a little bit more humid. All of this together puts that high-pressure center back over the northern Gulf, which brings a lot of sinking, compressing, warming air into the environment. It doesn't allow for a lot of cloud cover, and it really just limits any kind of significant change in terms of storm systems and things of that nature. Now, all of that said, you can see this big trough of low pressure early next week that's kind of getting carved out and advertised. I wouldn't get overly excited about the prospects of that in the short term because now we're starting talking 7-10 days away, and we look at trends, not patterns. But this would be the big pattern breaker that we were talking about that brings a big cold front through the area end of next week, if that were to happen. But you also have to take into account that during that stretch, there's a pretty staunch ridge of high pressure out over the lower Mississippi Valley. So one's going to have to win, and lately it's been high pressure. While it has been kind of like a bend, don't break defense in football, that's kind of like what the ridge of high pressure has been lately. I like that analogy. Haven't used it before. Going to use it again eventually. So that's how things kind of pan out. And I think I just went through this graphic again. But anyway, let's take a look at the tropical satellite and the latest on Tropical Storm Jerry. And if you follow the storm in the middle of the screen and you see those lighter grays towards the center that are also spiraling, that's the actual storm's center. It's kind of lopsided at this point. Not the most organized, symmetrical storm, but it is a strengthening storm, and it has some pretty strong convection towards the storm's center. Maximum sustained winds now up to 60 miles per hour, and it is forecast to become a hurricane gradually over the next 48 to 72 hours. So it kind of just maintains its gradual strengthening, maintains its strength at this point as it wanders off to the west. We'll start to get a little bit better structure, a little bit better organized, perhaps reach hurricane status. But that's about it. Again, not necessarily the most favorable environment for robust, rapid strengthening or anything like that with Jerry. And it's also not expected to be a storm that impacts our area. Probably passing to the east of Bermuda, which a lot of those we often kind of quantify as fish storms, meaning that unless you're a fish, you really don't get impacted by them. If you follow a lot of tropical weather social media, and you ever hear that terminology, that's what they typically mean. Anyway, nobody needs to know that. Daytime highs will be back in the low to mid 80s today. Again, you can really start seeing the impacts of the front, not only and also the cloud cover, but really start seeing the impacts of the front as we head through the overnight and into the day tomorrow. Most of us will probably still be quite warm through the afternoon, especially along and south of I-20. Lows tonight as that drier air starts to move in. There's a lot of areas that are starting to trend mid to upper 50s. Morning lows mid 60s across the I-20 corridor, but the front continues to start nudging its way through the region. Daytime highs for Thursday, tomorrow, generally upper 70s to near 80 across southern Arkansas, low to mid 80s, quite seasonal for this time of year along and south of the I-20 corridor. 7-day forecast made possible by 3B Outdoor Equipment, the exclusive outdoor power equipment company of the Digital Weather Desk. Small rain chances for the southern counties and parishes today, and then very pleasant Thursday, Friday into the upcoming weekend, but then the warming trend is back in, probably pushing us back to near 90 degrees by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. So that's the downside to all of this. The plus side to it all is that this quieter pattern does bring some pleasant mornings ahead. But again, it could exacerbate or even lead to what we call rapid onset drought conditions across the area. I don't like to get into the fancy terminology, but it just means that a drought could arrive quickly, just depending on how things are panning out for the time being. Leah, good afternoon. Hello. Marlene asks, how's the app coming along? For folks that haven't hopped in on a daily basis, which I don't really blame you because the weather's been pretty quiet. We do have both test versions of the app, and we have been going through those. I do expect to submit final approval for both of those apps in the next day or two, and then it gets submitted to both the Apple and Google stores, Apple and Android stores, and then it's up to them to publish them and make them available for download. And that sometimes takes up to I believe 10 to 14 days. So maybe next week or two, somewhere in that ballpark. Again, I like to under-promise, over-deliver. I would much rather it show up in the next week and us be like, oh, here it is. But you'd be like, well, you said it was going to be 2 more weeks. And I'd be like, I know, it's crazy, it's here. But instead, I would, again, realistically think in the next 2 weeks, hopefully, we will have the app ready to go. That's the update. You can always catch the latest forecast and latest radar at digitalweatherdesk.com. We'll have your Louisiana Tech football forecast out this afternoon. It is a road game. It's a 6 o'clock kick tomorrow night in Kennesaw, Georgia. They play Kennesaw State, the Owls. Who, you say? The Owls? Who, you say? Get it? Because they're owls. Anyway, we'll have that forecast later this afternoon for folks that are maybe perhaps hitting the road early tomorrow and need to know what the weather conditions are. We'll have your fishing game later tonight as well, and I'll join you live with a look at the forecast a little bit later on today. Headed out to go do some backyard yard work to clear out room as we get ready for some upgrades that we had mentioned, and if you haven't heard about that, content will be limited for early parts of next week as we have a generator installed, and so that will involve some power being disrupted and all that kind of stuff. All right, lots of updates. I think I've covered everything. Cubs come on at 4, probably their last game of the season. I think they're going to lose. That's just me being a realistic, probably pessimistic fan. Like I said, latest forecast can always be checked at digitalweatherdesk.com.